Hey, welcome to Founders Friday. Hopefully, we are live. Uh, no, hopefully, Paul, you're on. Trying to share my screen here. For a spot of mental fitness, we're going to be talking about freeing yourself from self sabotage. Hello. Hi, everybody. If you are joining, please do give me a shout. Welcome to Founders Friday. Just wanted to say a huge thank you to Paul for the invitation to come on and speak to you all today. Today, we're going to be talking about mental fitness and freeing yourself from self sabotage because we all do experience it. I don't think I've met one person that doesn't experience some self sabotage at some point in their life or certainly their business. And that's what I want to focus on today. So, without more than ado, let me continue to move on with my slides. So if you are watching, do let me know. You can hear me, you can see the slides, and yeah, let me know that you're watching, because I do want to ask you guys some questions as well. Okay, so let's kick off. If I can actually move some of these slides on my screen, that would be great. Okay, here we go. So when I was talking to Paul about what to speak to you all about, obviously Paul has this amazing 5-star focus program. I've actually taken it myself and found it really super useful. And what really interested me was really, for me as a certified professional coach, I actually help my clients very much get and actually reignite the flame to kickstart their mojo and increase their productivity, as well as lots of other things. Interestingly, as a business owner, though, I can recognize when I get myself stuck, quite easily. And it can happen all too easily, and that's why I want to speak specifically about how we can actually override these feelings of stuckness, of losing your mojo, and feeling distracted a lot of the time. And as he rightly points out, hoping and wishing, well, they're just not enough, essentially. So let's go on. So what is really causing your lack of focus? When do you feel overwhelmed? And when do you feel you kind of dive into procrastination? And I wanted to ask you guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, how often does this affect you? Yeah, 1 being, not really at all. 10 being, yeah, every day it affects me, actually. Just if you would like to, if you are watching live, do put a number in the chat. If you're watching this on replay, then please do still comment, because I'd love to know and get a gauge for everyone in the community just how much this is affecting you. It's definitely something that affects me as a business owner and entrepreneur. And I actually have some tools that I'm going to share with you today as to how you can practice to override these, feelings of this lack of focus, overwhelm, and procrastination. So a little bit about me. My name's Christina Lord, and I am passionate about helping people master their energy and connect to their inner power to overcome any challenge. So I retrained as an ICF certified coach a few years ago after a long career in marketing field and retail packaging. And I've all the way through really my career, I've had a natural interest in psychology, and I've gone through quite a personal development journey myself, and so that's why it's really kickstarted my vocation into coaching. And my authentic action branding all came about because I realised that once I aligned with what I truly loved, not what other people loved, not what I thought other people should do, once I aligned with what I cared about, then actually my life improved significantly. And that's really the drive that I'm wanting to, have other people experience as well. Always adding tools, always learning. As it says on this slide, I did get my certification through a training provider called IPEC. That's the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching. And within their methodology is all around core energy coaching, which is really dealing with a lot of the subconscious mind and helping people identify what's going on for you subconsciously. So coaching you from the inside out, essentially. I'm also a master practitioner of an energy leadership assessment, which is a powerful insight tool, and that really informs the coaching that I do with people. So let's move on. So I wanted to ask you guys, can you imagine being able to quickly and simply shift into having more focus, more productivity, and more confidence? What would you gain by learning to do this? Yeah, obviously, big gift there, my favourite Jim Carrey, from this movie where he's, gets this power, gets these God powers, right? What would you do? How would your life be different? How would your business be different if you could actually create more focus, be more productive in your work, and really come from a place of power and passion to create that natural confidence? What would change for you? I'd love to know. If you wanted to share in the comments, then I'd love to hear. And once again, if you're watching this on replay, please do feel free to share as well. So what's the solution? How can we get this, focus, productivity and confidence? Well, the key is mental fitness. And so it's really looking at how we can train what I call your self-command muscle to create more of these modalities. Because if you think about it, we go to the gym and we exercise our physical muscles, our biceps, our quads, our hamstrings. We exercise and we power lift to strengthen those parts of ourselves. So why don't we do that mentally? It stands to reason, because there's been a lot of research around in neuroscience that suggests that actually our brains are malleable, and neuroplasticity tells us that actually we can train our brains. And ultimately, that's the antithesis of what creates the foundation of our well-being and our success. So what is mental fitness? Well, it's a combination. This is actually founded by positive intelligence as a methodology, strands these 4 key areas into this whole method of mental fitness. So it was a guy called Shizad Shamin, and he wrote a book called Positive Intelligence, and I've actually been doing some work with him and a lot of other coaches to actually develop this further. So essentially, the definition of mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with positive rather than a negative mindset. And the impact of that is peak performance, peace of mind and wellness, and healthy relationships. So the 4 strands there look at positive psychology, which is a relatively new field, and it really looks at how we can actually look at the more positive ways of, feeling happy, feeling that sense of well-being from a physiological and a psychological standpoint. So how we can actually retrain our brains through our psychology. Neuroscience obviously is a huge field that is growing in its research and actually complementing a lot of these other areas because, just as an example, there's been more research done around meditation and actually showing how we can create new neural pathways in our brain, which is what I'm going to talk about later, of how we can actually strengthen the way that we think, feel, and act. And it's all around our neuroplasticity. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more, as I say, about that. Cognitive psychology is an older form of looking at psychology and the way in which we conduct our thoughts, feelings that release and produce our actions. So you may have heard things like cognitive behavioural therapy. That really looks at the patterns of our thinking. So there's an element of that in there too. And then finally, performance science. So this is really the amalgamation of how we can actually create peak performance and what are the ingredients that goes into allowing us to affect that change. Okay. So I want to really give you an overview, a summary, if you will. In your brain, you have the left side and the right side of your brain. And within the field of mental fitness, what we do is we look at the root cause of actually what's preventing or weakening your brain. So this illustrates that the left brain that we and I'm going to talk about, this is where your saboteur lives, is actually part of your survival brain, the most primitive part of your brain, the top of your brain stem, that actually is wired for you to survive. Yeah, it's the logical part of your brain. So this is the judgment part of right, wrong, good, bad. And it's part of your limbic system. And it motivates you through negative emotions. But it's specifically designed for our survival, right? So if you think of your hand on a hot stove, that tells you to remove your hand so you don't get hurt. A bus hurtling towards you, your left brain is in charge of signaling you to get out the way. So fear, stress, anger, guilt, insecurity are all generated from this side of your left brain, this survival part, the most primitive part of your brain as a human being. You've also got the right side of your brain. This is more your prefrontal cortex, and it's more to do with your empathy circuitry, more about sensory experience. It motivates you through positive emotions. So emotions like empathy, curiosity, creativity, passion, and purpose. So we're all walking around with both the left and right side of the brain. Sometimes when we are fearing something, our left brain can hijack our right brain and just take everything over. And so we end up living and operating from our left brain and down-regulating our right brain. So what I'm going to be talking about today is actually how do we more tune into our right brain and still use the functions of the left brain, so where it's going to really benefit us. So obviously the power of mental fitness is being able to leverage these two sides. I was talking to somebody just the other day about Elon Musk, right? Obviously hugely successful entrepreneur, has created such wealth financially, such notoriety. But if you delve a bit deeper into his story, you'll find that actually he is driven by fear. I know that he, in his past, did not have a good relationship with his father, and actually a lot of his success has been trying to prove to his father that he's worthy. So he's generated a lot of success, but actually hasn't achieved happiness. So you could say that his success has been ruled by this fear side. And don't get me wrong, that can be hugely effective. And we can see so many examples in history with successful people that have been driven by adversity. The fact of the matter is, though, what is that costing you? What is that success ultimately costing you? Because if it's costing you your happiness, is it worth it? That's where we look at the sage side of the brain, because actually results tell us that generating more thinking, feeling patterns from your sage perspective, so, you know, your empathetic, creative, passionate side of your brain, actually generates higher success and, importantly, sustained happiness. So it's not an either or, it's actually a both and. So I'd love to know, what would you prefer? Which one would you prefer? Obviously, we're leveraging the two, but if you could create success and happiness, how amazing would that be? Okay, I want to introduce you to the head of your saboteurs, and that's this little guy with the wig, the judge. So 95% of our behaviour is driven by our unconscious mind, a huge 95%. And so a lot of the work that I do actually seeks to lift the lid to actually understand what is at the root of what's creating our behaviour. And often this saboteur, our judge, and we all have it, it's our inner critic. Yeah, it's that inner voice that constantly judges you, finds fault with what you're doing, with what other people are doing, or just your general circumstance. It's, you know, that's wrong, that's not fair. It's that voice that can be so loud, and it can totally hijack our whole way of thinking and being and feeling. It causes much of our disappointment. So it actually triggers in the way, because we're judging something as bad, it can trigger us into anger, regret, guilt, shame, and produce a lot of anxiety. And not only that, it actively activates even more saboteurs that I'm going to go on to introduce you to. So just going back to the first slide where we talked about, you know, what might you be experiencing as part of your lack of focus, feeling overwhelmed and experiencing some procrastination. These are likely some of your saboteurs. Now, through the work that Shazad Shamin has done within Positive Intelligence, he's actually broken saboteur inner critic down into 9 core characters. And we're all a different blend of these characters depending on our life experience and actually what we're wired, how we're wired to be. So this really just illustrates, I'm just really going to introduce you to 3 that could possibly be creating, be at the root cause of, first, your lack of focus. So the avoider. The avoider is there to really take you away from unpleasant tasks. So it doesn't like feeling certain feelings. Yeah, it just wants to remove itself to actually seek pleasurable experiences. So it will try and do whatever it can to downplay real issues and just, you know, put it off. Oh, it'll be fine. I'll get to it. It'll be fine. And you keep doing that, but you're withholding the thing that has to be done. And actually, all you're doing is creating more anxiety and more of this heavy feeling, which is creating focus because it's still there underneath the surface. And so it's creating this lack of focus. Yeah, because we're avoiding what really needs to be done. The other saboteur that could be at play here is the restless saboteur. And the restless saboteur is a multi-passionate, you know, I suppose, a seeker of excitement, constantly seeking, oh, shiny object syndrome. I totally identify with this. And we often see people who are extroverted, are naturally creative, generally have this restless saboteur. And what it does, it creates this feeling of impatience, of fear of missing out. And really, again, underneath it all, we're just trying to avoid discomfort. So we can really get into overdrive sometimes where we can have all of these ideas, but we lack the patience to be able to sit down and focus just onto one track. And so we can get whipped up into overwhelm, which then can kickstart our lack of focus. So these two are very much interconnected. I'd love for you to know, whoever's watching on replay or live, which one of these resonates with you? I'd love to know. The third one is the stickler. Now, the stickler as a saboteur seeks perfection and order in everything, and is highly critical of yourself and highly critical of other people. Yeah. And this can very much manifest as procrastination because you won't take the action until something is perfect, until all of the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. I will add at this point that your saboteurs aren't all bad. They point towards your superpower. In fact, the way that you can look and probably guess whose saboteurs are at play is actually look at where they are most powerful. Look at where you have the greatest strength. Because actually all your saboteur is you're out of whack, you're out of balance. And so you're either massively over-regulating or under-regulating part of you. And so here we talk about your superpower can also act. So by knowing this, by identifying with it, you can actually start to do something about it. So how can you shift out of your saboteur mode? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's a very good question. Step one is to become aware of it, is to, really identify, oh, I'm feeling angry, or, oh, I'm getting stuck again, or I just can't focus. Bring an element, label it, say it out loud. Ah, there you are, restless saboteur. Ah, there you are, stickler. I see you. Step two is to then practice what we call PQ reps. And like I mentioned, this is mental fitness. And there are so many different tools and methods. But what I find is really practicing, and it can only just take 2 minutes, but it's a regular practice of grounding, which actually engages the sage part of the brain. So engages more coming back into your body, grounding, breathing, and actually down-regulating your fight or flight response, which is very much where your saboteur is operating, and actually drop into, more of a calm place to be. So the third step is to really shift your thinking into sage perspective. So again, there's lots of tools that I share with my clients about coming from a place of kind, compassionate curiosity, and actually looking at the gift of what you are presented with. And that actually allows you to shift out of the saboteur and disempower your saboteur, so you can actually more move into this sage perspective. And then it's just all about repeating. And the key here is practice, because as the gift shows on this slide, you are literally rewiring your brain. When you attach a thought with a powerful emotion, it actually fuses new synaptic nerves. So you can actually start to create new neural pathways in your brain. And with added practice, that becomes your default mode. Yeah, it's powerful stuff and it works. So how would you like to meet your inner critic crew? These are all 9. The controller, the hyperachiever, the restless that I've mentioned, the stickler, the pleaser, the hypervigilant, the avoider, the victim, and the hyperrational. And we can really start to look at, we're all a blend of all of these, but actually depending on what drives us is going to be key to actually how we can look at deregulating it to get the best out of the strengths that we have and be able to come from a place of grounded confidence to affect things like your focus and your confidence levels, to be able to operate more from a place of strength and power and not be overrun and hijacked by your judge and all of your inner critic crew, as I call them. So to wrap up, I want to ask you, which are sabotaging you? If you would like to learn more about this, then I'm offering a PQ assessment. So this is an example, as you see, that it gives you a score. Basically, it's an online assessment that you will take, answer some questions, takes about 20 minutes to complete. And actually, you'll automatically be sent your own breakdown of each saboteur, its characteristics, thoughts, feelings. And then you could book in a session with me where we could explore We can discover which ones are at play for you, explore where they've got their tightest grip over you, and then be able to look at ways to transform out of there. So as part of a thank you for today as being part of Founders Friday, I wanted to offer you guys a special rate. So it's actually £50 for everybody in Newcastle Startup Week to have this assessment and the 50-minute coaching session to be able to understand where you're at and actually ways in which you can begin to strengthen your mental fitness. So again, because this is all about your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. Because ultimately the impact on you, your relationships, your business, your life is being able to perform at your peak, to have that regular ability to tap into peace, wellness. And, you know, when you're happy, chances are the relationships around you are going to be happier too. Whether that's your immediate family, your colleagues, your boss, your clients, whatever that is, that's all there for the taking. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to add in links below. So if you would like to book a session and take advantage of the offer of £50 for Newcastle Startup Week, the code is NSW. But like I say, I'll put all of those information in the comments below, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again for listening, and thanks again, Paul, for the opportunity to be part of this month's Founders Friday.